Hey guys, Naz here with another video. In this video, I'll be reviewing Xenoblade Chronicles 3. There will be no story spoilers and the background will mostly consist of B-roll from my playthrough after the tutorial. This is my first time playing a Xeno game, so if you don't mind, let's get into this. We'll cover the story first since I'm sure that's what most of us play the games for. When they announced the trailer, I was intrigued right away when they said, let's see how far they come this time. Two sides constantly fighting to survive to see another day? If they somehow survive 10 years, then they are honored with a homecoming? I remember having so many questions when I initially dived into this game, but most were answered as you played through the story. I feel like this is worth mentioning because this game is supposed to have DLC content coming out, but from start to completion, I felt like most of my questions were answered. The only things up in the air were towards the end, but I'm assuming that's from playing Xenoblades 1 and 2 that the story would tie together, and that's where I felt a little confused. Next up, there were a handful of moments in the game's story where it did a wonderful job invoking emotion from being really happy to sad and teary-eyed. I usually don't get connected too much because most stories and acting seem generic with how many games I have played, but Xenoblade did an amazing job creating situations to be relatable. That's all I really want to say about the story, as I don't want to edge on the border of spoiling stuff. Now, the side stories are worth talking about. I enjoyed doing them as not only did they give good rewards, but they helped character growth and connections. As someone who's been gaming for over 30 years, it's very rare to have cutscenes with two characters and them actually bonding without it feeling like fluff. I appreciated this so much, and I wanted to thank Monolith for doing so. The last things I'll mention about this game are the life lessons mentioned throughout the game. I was heavily influenced by who I became because of The World Ends With You and the life lessons that game had in my teenage years. If I played this game back then, it would have easily been one of my favorite games because of the quality lessons shared. Speaking of quality, let's talk about the graphics and music. To my surprise, the Switch actually handles the game very well. There are some cutscenes and area in the game where you can clearly tell it's the hardware limitation, but overall, I was pleasantly happy with it. I was scared initially going into this game that there would be issues loading open world areas and being able to render it all, but don't fret. Next up is the music. There were a lot of areas in the game where the music had nostalgic tunes to other RPG games I had played, and I found myself just sitting idle and taking it all in. After playing this game, I have a handful of songs that I've already added to my playlists. Now for the main reason why I got into this game. For anyone familiar with Bravely Default or Octopath Traveler, you'll be glad to hear this game did an amazing job with the class system. You start off with 6 blades. Blades are basically jobs or classes in other RPG games. Each blade comes with 5 arts, which consists of your main damage and have a cooldown. You can only assign 3 of the 5 arts, and depending on the faction of the blade, they'll either be recharged from time passing, or your second form of damage, auto attacks. Auto attacks add up to roughly 5% of your damage in the grand scheme of things, but they are very important for the Agnes faction to get their arts off cooldown. With that being said, there are gems and equipment to help you customize your party to output the most damage, and plenty of effects to choose from. Speaking of plenty of options, each blade also comes with 4 passives, of which 2 will be able to be used on other blades. You get 3 passive slots with over 20 blades to play with, so the options are plenty. We're not done there. There's also a fusion system where you combine with another party member, giving you iframes. During this time, you get access to a completely new set of arts and a skill tree to fill out to make combat even better. Speaking of making combat better, there are chain attacks which I completely sucked at for the first 2 days of playing, but in my learning process of how to efficiently use these windows to deal damage, while the enemy is a punching bag, I learned 2 things. 1, the game can be over if you build for this moment, because you'll deal so much damage that a boss can go from 80% HP to 0. And 2, that some builds are completely bad, because why extend a fight where you expose yourself to dying and having a game over when you can have it finished right then and there. I currently have over 150 hours in game, having just beat it on hard mode, and I highly recommend this game just for the combat alone. I mentioned hard mode because not only was this a challenge as my first Xenoblade game, but it helped me push the play to the best I could to get the most out of the game. While I struggled the first 50 hours because of how brutal hard mode is in the series, I walked away feeling like I used all my tools to their fullest. Now with that said, the hurdles I had in this game weren't because of hard mode per se, but to an underlying issue that has been plaguing the Xenoblade series since the first game. This is coming from veterans who watch my stream, to reading up on forums to see if other people are having this issue. The AI of your allies are bad. There aren't any options out of combat to set up how they function, and when you get in combat there are only 4 options. One being using your fusion arts more, using arts that focus on a burst or a smash combo, another being focused on the target you're attacking, and then to have your AI allies move to your location, which disables them from doing anything. This was my bane in the learning process of this game. I came in with the mindset of just wanting to chill on a DPS job while the AI tanks and heals for me, but that was on me, right? Not only does the AI have a hard time holding aggro when I was DPSing, but the healers use their heals inefficiently, which causes unnecessary deaths. A good example of this is if an attack hits for 5 damage out of your 100 HP pool, they will heal you instead of waiting until you're 70 HP to get the full value out of the art. This snowballs in a fight because now the AI can't do anything for the next 15 plus seconds, where the tank is getting smashed with auto attacks and arts from the boss. And when the tank finally gets a heal, they are most likely dead from the next art the boss uses because the AI has nothing left. A good example of a series that has improved upon each installment is the Kingdom Hearts series. Most of us who've played this casually can agree that Donald sucks at healing, right? In Kingdom Hearts 1, you could only control how often he uses offensive or defensive magic. In Kingdom Hearts 2, they added a bunch of options on how the AI functions to better suit your playstyle, like having them attack the target you're attacking, or turn on and off which magic they can use. In Kingdom Hearts 3, they keep these options but expand on it more by having Donald now heal Sora only if you wanted that. I hope in the next installment, Monolith does something to give the players a better control on the AI, because they ruined the fun in battle, and I'm a gameplays first kind of guy. Now don't get me wrong guys, I'm only criticizing this part heavily because I feel like this series can be so much better if they touch upon the AI. While I'm fully aware that the AI is bad in Xenoblade 3 and prior entries, I will be playing Xeno 1 and 2 because I enjoyed the game so much and I want to learn about the whole universe. My final rating for this game will be an 8 out of 10 because the story was good for someone who had no idea what was happening in the first 2 games, the music was nostalgic, had me idling just taking it all in, and the combat overall was very good for someone who loves to min-max builds. If you're on the fence of getting this game, I highly recommend it. Don't forget, if this video brought value to you, please leave a like and consider subscribing to see as I play a wide array of RPG games. This was also my very first video game review, and any feedback is appreciated as I would like to make better ones down the road. Until the next video, I'll see ya.